The Hawaii Sports Radio Network on 95.1 FM and AM 760 presents Wake Up in the Den with Ku'ule Agbayani.
Good morning, beautiful people. It's Wake Up in the Den alongside Paul Brecht. I'm Ku'ule Agbayani. Michael Liskera will be here soon. He better be. I totally plugged him on Twitter this morning, so he better be here soon. But welcome to the show. Happy Monday. Hope you guys had a great weekend. I'll tell you about my weekend in just a little bit. Got another packed Monday show for you, of course, on Hawaii Sports Radio, 95.1 FM, AM 760, hawaiisportsradio.com. And since it is Monday, we are streaming live right now on our YouTube channel as we do every single Monday. So hello to everyone watching us on YouTube this morning, which there's only a couple of you, but we'll wait for you guys to come in. Anyways, jumped on a little later just because I had to run somewhere, like literally run and catch my breath and come back here. So aloha to everyone watching on YouTube, and including anyone that tunes in after and is watching from outside of Hawaii. We definitely appreciate you guys for tuning in. But yes, we will get to a lot of University of Hawaii football conversation after Hawaii comes back from a loss at Pullman and against Washington State. As I mentioned on my social media, Michael Liskera will have a very extensive X and O breakdown for you guys. He really did quite literally go and watch the film yesterday as I woke up to a plethora of text messages of Michael breaking it down. And Paul, I was already passed out by then. I was so exhausted from the weekend.
I mean, that makes sense.
But I was up early this morning, and yeah, I kind of read through everything. So I'm like, you know what? I got to tweet about that. Michael's going to have the extensive breakdown. And then we'll get into a lot of high school football and girls volleyball conversation, especially as it deals with the Oahu schools, and that being the OIA and ILH, because the OIA girls volleyball playoffs, the Division I semifinals are going on today. Division I or Division II championship matchup is set, and we'll bring you that coverage on Wednesday, but we'll talk about it a little bit. Michael will give you the scenarios that's happening in the ILH side, and same thing with football. So we got open division. D1, D2 wraps up this week for OIA, and then a bunch of funkiness going on in the ILH, as to be expected in their open division, just because you only have 3 teams that are playing against each other. So we'll have that. We'll have some audio, post-game audio from some of the student athletes and coaches. We'll get into some University of Hawaii sports outside of football, and that being soccer and women's volleyball. As, hey, I'm sporting my women's basketball, actually, long sleeve shirt today because we got media days today. And then this weekend, Paul and I will be out in Hilo to get a first look at the Rainbow Wahine and Rainbow Warriors in action. So it's a lot of stuff to get into as I'm still catching my breath. And you guys got to take a look. I didn't show you guys on YouTube yet, and you can't really tell the back view of Paul right now. I'm going to show you because we'll get into more of the game itself. But, you know, if there's anything, I don't know who's happier in the studio right now, me, because I got plus money on the New York Liberty. Switching the camera over right now, and he is donning his New York Liberty and New York Yankees jersey right now. Look at that. Look at that.
A little New York. A little bit, 15 years for the one, and then for the first time in franchise history for the other. It's a great weekend for the women. I will say all the women's teams that I root for, I'm like, yeah, go women.
The women are not letting you down like you told me this morning.
They never do. I mean, the Rainbow Wahine soccer team along the lines of them, it's been awesome. But the Liberty, that one was pretty special. That one was pretty cool.
That was cool. First championship in franchise history, being that they are one of the few original franchises even left that still have a team, and actually under new ownership. Their owner, or co-owner, actually said amazing things that we hear all around now. It's like they took over the team 4 years ago, invested heavily in it, moved the team to play at the Barclays Center, and drafted obviously Sabrina Ionescu, my Caitlin Clark before Caitlin Clark, and I quite literally had a few. I did tear. I didn't cry. I did tear a little bit watching it. I was watching the game actually because the HPU game that we brought you yesterday, I was on site for that. So you have this overtime scenario going on as the HPU game is ending. And then we wrapped up and I was watching the game in my car of the New York Liberty and the Lynx. And I'm like, come on. And then right when it ended, and then even though, Sabrina and Stewie didn't do that well in that particular game, they had all the contributions throughout the season. And I was just over the moon for Sabrina Ionescu. And like I said, we'll get to that more later, but shout out. And it was an amazing run. And I can't wait to go back to Vegas to cash out that ticket I have, that futures bet that I put on the New York Liberty. And hey, we kind of made note that Jonquel Jones finals MVP would have been fun to sprinkle. So maybe someone lived dangerously and did that as well because she was the MVP. All right. Before we get into University of Hawaii football, though, I wanted to, because this is kind of a build up for that. In that Saturday, I missed pretty much like the first half of the game. Hence why when we get into the conversation, it'll be a lot of Paul and Michael talking you guys through that. But I missed the first half of the game. I didn't get to watch too much of the replay. And it's one of those games where I kind of didn't want to go back and watch it because you just get upset all over again. But this is what I was doing on Saturday. If you guys I'm going to pop it right here for you guys on YouTube. I went over the edge for Special Olympics there. If you're not familiar with it, you literally go over and scale down the Hyatt in Waikiki. It's about 40 stories, I want to say. And yeah, shout out to our team Donation Nation that had Kimo Kai and Ben Eisen, along with my rappel partner, UH Baseball head coach Rich Hill. And Rich Hill, being the guy that charges 20-foot waves on the daily, was living up to exactly what he said coming in to coach the University of Hawaii. No scare him, go get him, because Rich Hill was ready to. I was obviously like quite worried once you got there. You guys heard me talking about it last week, and that I was like, all right, this is going to be a big deal. I don't know.
It's a little different when you're in person.
I don't know what I agreed to here, but I did it. The adrenaline went. It maybe only took like a couple minutes or so to get down to the ground. Rich Hill, he kind of like left me in the dust. He was already ready to go over, and he did, while I'm over there like holding on, like looking at the safety people like, are you sure? Are you sure? They go through an extensive like safety thing with you. I think there was a little less than 100 people that did it. Again, all supporting Special Olympics. So it was a fun time. And again, shout out to everyone that did it. Thank you so much to the team at the Special Olympics, the volunteers that consisted of the safety volunteers consisted of, like firefighters, lifeguards, everyone there to keep all the participants safe. And I'm right after it happened, I was like, I never need to do this again. But afterwards, I'm like, you know what? I think I will do it again. I got to see how the pictures turn out. That's the main thing, right? Like I need to see how
can the post look good enough to make me do it again.
Exactly. No, bad enough. Because if it looks bad, I want to do it again so I get a better photo.
You know what? Fair. Okay, I'll hear you out on that one too.
That's kind of where my mind was at because I was so scared. I wasn't sure how I was posing because you like kind of lean back and like have to smile, and I might have like a worried look on my face and just be like, this is me. So yeah, we'll see what happens. But again, it was a great cause, and we might start. Don't be surprised if we start bringing you more Special Olympics coverage here, because if there's anything we love to do at the Hawaii Sports Radio Network, it's support all athletes. So that would be kind of fun for just for us to get out in the community and maybe bring some play-by-play action on the radio for Special Olympics. My motto here, I'm always about like, if it's never been done before, let's put it on the list. Yeah. Put it on the list for us to do. So I got a contact over there at Special Olympics. So it's going to be a fun time. But again, shout out to everyone that did it. And thanks a lot, Rich Hill, for leaving me in the dust, because I had to catch up to him when we got. So you take a picture at the top. And then before you you're kind of halfway down and you take a picture, and then you go down like maybe 5 stories, and there's people on that balcony ready to take your picture again. And Rich had to wait for me because he already just went, and he's like yelling. He's like, "I'm waiting for you." I'm like,
it's hard to keep up with these young coaches, isn't it?
I know. thanks a lot, Rich. And then once we pass that, you kind of see, I posted some video on my social, and you kind of see it is sped up, but even more so, you can see how he just starts like pulling away from me. And I was just scared that if you pull, so you kind of control the speed at which you go by the lever that you have in front of you. And I was just worried because if you pull it too much, or if you go too fast and it stops you, and then you have to do this whole thing where you got to make yourself go again. So I was afraid that it was going to do that. So I could have gone faster, but I didn't. I just didn't want the emergency stop thing to happen. But I don't know. We'll see.
You went down a building. That's something I would never do. I say that. I will probably someday get talked into it, even though I am terrified of going down heights. I was going to say falling down heights, but you're not falling, I suppose, if you're rappelling down.
Yeah.
But no. I mean, I salute to you, my friend. Very proud of you. Super cool event in general. Good cause, all that. Not me.
Paul is
good
like,
for you, though.
No, thank you. Yeah. Like I said, maybe I'll do it again. Come on, team bonding. We gotta go like over the edge, everybody together.
I'll take the video.
Anyways, like I said, I got to see how the official photos turn out for me to consider maybe doing it again, and hopefully you guys get encouraged to do it again as well. All right, enough about me, and that was perfect because, like I said, I didn't get to watch a good amount of the football game because I was too busy rappelling off the side of a building. And then once we got home, and then I got like the adrenaline kind of stopped, and I could focus again on the game. So when we come back, we will get to your University of Hawaii football talk, especially with Paul Brecht and maybe Michael Escaro. I don't know, but we will see. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. UH football conversation is next here on the Hawaii Sports Radio Network.
Agbayani on the Hawaii Sports Radio Network, 95.1 FM and AM 760.
Welcome back to Wake Up in the Den. Kule Agbayani and Paul Brecht. All right, going to get into your University of Hawaii football conversation. As yes, I had to take a big deep breath because if you guys watched the game on Saturday, like we all did, you know exactly kind of what happened and what transpired in that disappointing loss for Hawaii. 2-10 at Washington State, at Pullman, Washington. And we will get into more of your extensive stuff with Michael Escaro coming in or joining us via the phone a little later. But first, just want to start with the general breakdown of just the game itself. Again, as we pull up some of these scores for you. So 42-10 for those watching on YouTube via HawaiiAthletics.com. Hawaii able to actually get on the board first with that field goal. And then after that, it was just kind of felt like a downhill battle from there, especially to begin the second quarter, which started with a missed field goal. So it made the field goal to open up and get on the board first, but then headed into the second quarter, and it just felt very drastic from there and went downhill. If you take a look, we'll pull it up on our YouTube as well, just the breakdown of the quick team statistics and the scoring plays, again, via hawaiiathletics.com. Total yards, Hawaii with 300, Washington State with the triple fours, 444. Passing yards, Washington State with 321 and 123 in rushing yardage. Hawaii, for their part, 196 in passing yards and rushing yards. It looked nice. It looks a lot better than 15, that's for sure, with a 104. The penalty yards. So that's the crazy thing, right? It's like penalties. We always harp on the penalties, especially since that away game in Sam Houston. And this was a game that Hawaii actually limited their penalties, just 4 penalties for 30 yards compared to Washington State's 8 for 67. And then you see that breakdown, and probably on here anyways, what we're showing you on YouTube, just Hawaii not able to convert on the third downs, 0 for 8. Meanwhile, the Cougars 7 for 11 on third downs, and only 1 fourth down try for each, with neither team converting their fourth down. Time of possession, Hawaii 27 and a half minutes to Washington State's 32 and a half minutes. So not much difference there. I think for everyone that did watch, and for the portion that I got to watch and kind of keep up with and look down on the box score, I think the biggest thing that stood out is just the turnovers, the untimely and what proved to be costly turnovers for the Rainbow Warriors. 3 turnovers that led to 21 points for Washington State. And as I mentioned, it kind of felt like it started off with the beginning of that second quarter. So Kansei making the field goal in the first quarter, but similar to what we saw in the other game against Boise, you switch sides, and then it's something which, Michael can break down a little later, where it's that switch from going in one direction for the kicking team or special teams, and then flipping to the other side, in which Kansei, it's like I said, it's weird that it happened back-to-back games where you just switch sides and it ends up costing you that field goal. And it's one of those where it's just makeable. I know everyone was at first too. I was like, how did he miss that field goal? But then you think about it, and it's just one of those, he just struggled with having to, I guess, visualize going on to one side and then having to go to the other side. So that was how the second quarter essentially started for Hawaii. And then after that, it was just the breakdown of turnover after turnover. Now, that first one by Nick Senecal, though, typical football play, tried to do the spin move, popped out, least opportune time.
It sucks, but it happens.
It happens. It wasn't one of those where you're like, why don't you hold on tighter to the football? It was like,
he
happens.
Caught it. He made a move. He picked up what would have been a first down, and then the ball got jarred loose at the last second as he was going down, and you lost it in your territory. Like I said, it sucks. You need to have better ball security, of course. Senecal, I'm sure, would say that himself, where he's like, I got to hold on to that ball. But it's something that happened. It's that it continued to compound from there, right? It was the missed field goal, then it was the fumble, and then it just continued to unravel and unravel and unravel for the rest of the day, pretty much.
Yeah, and you look at the breakdown, and that's where I'm like, it fell apart after that second quarter, right when the second quarter started, because Washington State, gets the ball back, and then afterwards it's turnover after turnover. They have shorter field. So this is why it matters in case people think about points off of turnovers. You essentially, you don't extend your drive, so you don't keep the ball out of their hands that longer. And then you shorten up the field for them because they're driving less than 50 yards down to the end zone. And that's why it becomes so costly when you turn over the football, especially in that type of field position, where another team who is very, very strong offensively, we already knew that going into there. John Mateer is a very solid quarterback who can be both threatening in the air and on the ground. So you know that coming in, and then these turnovers happen. You give a team and a guy like that's their quarterback, short distance to get into the end zone. You're almost guaranteeing that they're going to at least walk away with 3 points. So it's just costly turnovers, again, leading to 21 points. And not only does it lead to that many points, because you can't sit here and be like, oh, look, the score would have only been 21-10 if we didn't like give up all that stuff. No, because it just changes the mood, the dynamic, the not being able to get into your rhythm offensively. All of these things just compound on Hawaii. I do want to say, and I forgot to make note about this, I can't believe it, is because my technology is not working and my notes didn't want to open on my computer. So here I am. That Hawaii was without the services of Pefele Ashlock and Dekel Crowdis and Peter Manuma on defense. So you're already kind of going into the game.
Pretty good players to be missing games.
Offensively, you're already like down your top two receivers that you've had throughout the first beginning of this season. And then defensively, one of your best guys that protects the secondary, right? So you're already, the cards are stacked against you going into it. And then the turnovers, you're not doing yourselves any favors. And again, the missed field goal. But then Hawaii, and that's where you look at just the play and breakdown, and Hawaii gets the ball back. Then you get another turnover. So again, giving the ball back to Washington State, only keeping the football for like 2 minutes, and then you just give it back to Washington State, drives on the field again. And next thing you know, the score is like 21-3. And you're like, what's going on here? Back-to-back touchdowns off of the turnovers. And that's kind of how the second quarter is going on now. So it was just one of those things. Hawaii getting a couple of stops here and there, but it just was not getting any easier for Hawaii. And like I said, it's not only you're turning over the football, but those turnovers are leading to touchdowns. And the offense is just, you continue to just get struggle and get frustrated. And you could already start to see that towards the ending of the first half.
It was a really bad second quarter. I can't put it in any other way than that. And the shame of it all is this. So the field goal attempt, right, that Kansei ends up shooting wide left. Unfortunate, sure. The defense didn't crumble after that. The defense actually forced a 3-and-out, a punt. Did their job, came back and gave another opportunity to the offense. So it wasn't like the defense wasn't there. So I really do want to emphasize that I know how easy it would be to pile on the defense after. 42 points is the worst showing of the year for them. And they would say that, and they hold themselves to a higher standard than even when they're put into bad situations, which they were, like you mentioned, multiple times this game by the offense. They still feel that they should have been better. They did it with, like you said, a skeleton crew. I believe that also Sibo Brown out in this past game, where a lot of times it can be kind of just traced back to the other team went to their best personnel when they needed to and out-talented the Bows in a lot of ways. It's unfortunate. The turnovers can't happen on the road. We've talked about the little things before. It's a part of the reason why Hawaii has struggled so much on the road the past few years, where if it's not the penalties, it is the turnovers. If it's not the turnovers, it seems it's the penalties. Something seems to always go wrong on the road for Hawaii. And this one got away from them quickly in the first half, and yet still the defense gave them an opportunity. It's 21-3 at halftime. You get the ball back coming out of the halftime break, and you get a chance to come back into this one.
Yeah, and that was the thing, right? That was when I started kind of watching, and then Hawaii went on that drive, utilized Tylen Hines, and they were just marching down the field to come out of that the halftime, and you're like, all right, there we go, Hawaii. There you go. That's how we're going to move the ball. You know, everyone gets fired up, and the game isn't like a runaway by any means at that point. So you put up a touchdown, and now it looked like, all right, we went into the halftime, we talked whatever we needed to say, and now we're going to come out and we're going to put points on the board, right? And like everyone's getting fired up. Like I said, that's when I started focusing on the game because I had just gotten home from all of the stuff that was going on in the morning. I'm like, all right, woohoo, like let's go, Hawaii, we got this. Like what? It's an entire half to go. I wasn't there, but it didn't seem like the crowd was. They didn't have a full capacity crowd of like the 30,000+. I think it was listed on the official box score as like 25,000. Still a lot, but I'm like, crowd doesn't seem to be that much of a factor in this game. And you're starting to feel encouraged with the way that the second half has started, and then once again it goes all downhill from there. So, looking at some of the the breakdown of the stats here. Braden Shager, 20 for 30, had that one interception, had 196 yards, and that touchdown to Tylan Hines to open up the second half. Had a long of 23, but did get sacked 3 times, including the last turnover of the game that led to a touchdown with that strip sack. Yeah, it was the unfortunate one too.
That one, by the way, came right after Washington State scored the touchdown to answer back in the second half, right? So Hawai'i comes out, scores a touchdown, 21-10. Washington State, by the way, I did just sing the praises of the defense for making the best of bad situations in a lot of ways. They did have an opportunity to swing the game back into Hawaii's favor there. 1st and 20 to start that drive after a holding call to begin it. And at the end, Washington State ends up converting it. A great job by that offense. You know how dynamic that they can be. But from there, they go 13 plays down the field, 75 yards to score. And then it's the 5 plays and a strip sack. And once again, the defense back out on the field in a bad position. So when the defense couldn't pick up the offense then just kind of backed over the defense one last time. It was a brutal third quarter after a brutal second quarter.
That's why that far stretch all starting just felt like the very beginning of that second quarter. Tylan Hines, to his part, again, without the services of Dekel Crowdis and Pafele Ashlock on the receiving end. Tylan Hines was the leading receiver, targeted 6 times and caught it 42 yards. And that touchdown. And then Nick Senecal had 7 targets, caught 4 for 48 yards. So it's spread out along the receiving core. I know Michael will be happy to say that his guy Tama Uiliata got into the game, targeted a couple of times.
I yelled when he caught his one.
Caught one for 10 yards. So he was in there. A bunch of guys got the football, but it is different where where we saw against like San Diego State, you have a guy like Pafele Ashlock, someone that Braden Shager is clearly his favorite target for obvious reasons, and just knows if he flings it somewhere in that direction, Pafele is going to go and get the football. So not having kind of like that security blanket for Braden is something that I'm sure he had to deal and struggle with a little bit on the rushing side. Cam Barfield, he looked pretty good with some bursting runs that he had, carried the rock 6 times for 47 yards, and actually did not. This is the good thing about looking at the rushing stats, is that none of the rushers, except for Braden Shager, but I don't count him as a rusher per se, none of the rushers lost any yardage. I mean, I want to look at positives sometimes, so that's a positive. And we saw Christian Vaughn get in there and have a couple of solid runs for 32 yards. I was like, okay, this looks good. And of course, Tylan having a couple rushes as well, and seeing that Landon Sims was actually the bottom of all of the rushers, where we're used to seeing him kind of be the lead back. So I like kind of seeing that change happen offensively, where you're going in other directions when it comes to utilizing your running game, and it ended up boding pretty well for Hawai'i, netting over 100 yards. So there are like these sprinkles of positivity,
Absolutely.
But again, it's difficult when you look at those turnover battles, and like I said, for Hawai'i to actually be really sound when it comes to penalties and keeping it really low, just a normal day in football. But then those turnovers and not getting those stops, giving Washington State like just over 40 yards to march into the end zone. It's just, that's where Hawai'i was really hurt by. And as you mentioned, like we still want to give a lot of credit to the defense, but not coming up when you should have and letting Washington State answer your touchdown to come out of the halftime. It's just, you just couldn't get yourselves and dig yourselves out of that deep hole with those 14 points initially off of the turnovers to end the first half. It was a struggle.
It was critical errors in the worst moments, right? And where I feel like I say the same darn thing every single week, where you go in, you watch, and there are so many positives with this team, and they show us week in and week out that there are flashes there, that they could be really good, but they can't overcome those type of mistakes, because it's not just errors, it's back-breaking errors. It's giving away the ball 2 times in the first half, back-to-back, after giving up touchdowns, not picking up your defense, putting your defense in a bad situation, coming out of the second half, picking up your defense, and then your defense not being ready to go in the second half. It's all over the place unfortunate, but there are positives to take from it. And I'm glad that you bring them up because that was part of what I took, where Cam Barfield, like, can that be something going forward? That's a guy who you think he'll be here next year. He'll be here going forward. Perhaps grow that role even more with Micah Alihado or a John Keave Songopolatele or whoever comes in or whatever, right? You look at the future and you're like, okay, there are some pieces here that we could really start to work with. That being said, for terms of this season, well, it just hit code red if it wasn't already there, guys. You got to go 5-0 if you want to extend it at all. And it's not getting any easier, especially if you look at the way that the quarterbacks have started to play for some of the teams that are still left on the schedule for Hawaii.
Yep, definitely not getting easier. All about the bowl eligibility pretty much
5-0.
looking like it's
That's the only way.
That's literally the only way, because the only 2 wins Hawaii has were against FCS schools, so only 1 count, and hence that is why you got to go 5-0 to even try to be eligible for a bowl game to get to those 6 wins. All right, I'm going to step aside. When we come back, Michael Escaro will join us to give you the more extensive breakdown and X's and O's of what he saw and took away from that game at Washington State. So don't go anywhere. More UH football when we come back on Wake Up in the Den on the Hawaii Sports Radio Network.
Wake Up in the Den with Kulale Agbayani on the Hawaii Sports Radio Network, 95.1 FM and AM 760.
Welcome back to all of you, the beautifulest of all the beautiful people. It's Wake Up in the Den, right across of Mr. Paul Brecht. I'm Kulale Agbayani, and we are talking University of Hawaii football as they are coming back from yet another loss out at Pullman, Washington against Washington State. Hawaii falling 42-10, just being able to score a field goal in the first quarter and actually get on the board first, giving us some hope that was going to happen. And then after that, it was just a bunch of untimely and costly turnovers that ended up leading into points for Washington State, and Hawaii able to come out of the halftime with a nice drive and putting 7 points on the board. And again, we feel like, all right, here we go. Like, let's go. You're only down by a couple of scores now, and we got this. And then once again, it's just they're not being able to contain Washington State, a little like mistakes here and there. and the rest is history. But joining us now to give us more of the breakdown of the X's and O's, we got Michael Lescaro, not in studio with us today, but joining us via the technology that is Zoom. Michael, can you hear us? Hello.
Hello, hello. Yes, I can hear you guys, man. It was a crazy weekend. I think we had 3 broadcasts, and the funny thing was I actually woke up at 4 a.m. and I'm like, oh, I'm up early. I'm ready to go. I was like, let me just get in a little power nap, and power nap kind of backfired. But we are still here. We are still rolling, and yeah. Let me just kind of not bury the lead, but honestly, this game, I don't believe it's on the coaching staff. I believe, coming into this game, Hawaii was 2-4, and Washington State was 5-1, and you kind of are what your record is. And this is one of those games where I know it got us a penalty, but it's definitely an arms race for talent, right? And Washington State coming from the Pac-12, Pac-2, whatever it may be called, with their war chest and even their coaching, because they have one of the best young minds, play caller in Ben Arbuckle, who I believe got his degree in 2018, and in 6 years he's got his way to be the offensive coordinator, and really rising up the coaching ranks. So that's. But yeah, you know, we defensively, we without Peter Manuma, without Sibo Brown, there was definitely like holes that Washington State was able to attack. And we kind of saw it on Washington State's first drive, where one of our safeties, Kilinahe Mendiolo Jensen, he had to kind of play that Peter Manuma role where he had to be more in the box, more closer to the line of scrimmage, and then he kind of struggled in that areas. And one thing I appreciate about Coach Dennis Thurman is that he's never going to put our players in a situation or in a position where they can't do what that's asked of them, or that they're not comfortable with. So eventually they had to bench Nahe, and they had to put in Justin Sinclair and Meki Pei for the most part on defense. And so you're already down to your second string, pretty much your second string safeties, as well as having to rotate in different cornerbacks. And again, Washington State, we look at those 2 touchdowns off of turnovers against Hawaii in the second quarter, but they use a lot of the playbook, and they basically use a lot of pre-snap motion, pre-snap looks, pre-snap shifts to get their players in the best possible position. And then after we scored in the second half, it's like, oh, it's 21-10. Then they use John Mateer as a runner, and that's just another element for us to defend. So it was definitely hard to watch, because they just had answers to everything we did, but it's not like we could have done anything differently. And that's kind of what I want to say, is that you got to give some grace to our coaching staff and our team. And I'll be the first to be critical when we should have, could have, would have. But honestly, it just shows that our roster needs to get better, and it's not going to get better overnight, and it has to get better over time. On the offensive side of things, our offensive line is not the strongest, and Washington State definitely took advantage of this. But for Timmy as the play caller, he had a phenomenal game. Like, cool. I was also even pondering last night watching the film, like, hey, can you text Sherry off the record, because this. I mean, Timmy, it's not like they didn't try. I swear there was at least 10 different plays that Timmy put in this game, and it was working. It's just, we see all through this year is that when something else is working, something else falls apart. And like sacks, we limited down to 3, and then one of them too was just Braden taking it instead of forcing an interception. And penalties, I think we only had 4 for 30. So we fixed one thing, and then and that's just the state of this football team, is that we don't have the weaponry and the tools and the depth that some other teams do. And it's gonna take time. And now we always have those texters and people commenting about Timmy Chang's contract, and that's there's improvement. And I think we just it's hard because there's not a guaranteed 5th year, right? So, but there is effort for trying. And I just want to make sure everyone knows that we are trying different things. And sometimes You just get beat because the other team's a better team, and that was one of the case. And yes, on Saturday, because throughout all the other games, I thought we could have won it. This one, you could maybe after the second quarter, you could kind of tell that the other team just is a better team.
Yeah, and I feel like that's the sentiment that Paul and I always harp on, where especially when recruits come in and if they're really like big, like they have size, we're like, hey, you can't teach that. And sometimes like you need some athletes to come in. And speaking of not entirely having the personnel, we'll go to special teams, because you kind of made a interesting note in our text thread when it comes to Kansei Matsuzawa and that missed field goal in the second quarter. Again, made the first quarter field goal from a distance of 25 yards. And then the second quarter comes and Hawaii did have the ball. So you're flipping sides, and it was early in the second quarter that Kansei had to kick a 28-yarder, which you assume like, oh yeah, 28 yards, the weather's nice, like we're good, he'll make that. And I want to go into the personnel side, because Kansei, if to remind everyone, like it's a kid who taught himself how to kick on like YouTube. Like he's not a trained kicker. So that's part of the reason, like there's certain factors that can come into play that maybe 28 yards might not always be a sure thing for someone that isn't a real trained kicker who has been doing this for a while, or even maybe like a former soccer player or something that we've seen make the transition. But yeah, tell us a little bit about that, what you noticed that stood out for you when it comes to flipping sides for Kansei, again, making the one in the first quarter, but when we go into the second quarter, not too long after the second quarter starts, and you're looking into, or you're kicking towards another end zone, what do you think could have came into play and could be a big factor to why Kansei was not able to make that 28-yarder?
Yeah, I think this is a question too when we have Coach Sheffield on next time. Is that in the field goal post where Kansei has missed at? Was he able to practice, either pregame at that spot? Because usually when teams are warming up pregame, right, you only have one half of the field to warm up on. And I wonder if the field goals that he missed at were not the field goal post that he was practicing on. And I say that because, again, like you mentioned, he is somebody that learned how to kick via YouTube. And but now you're in a big game, you're in a big stadium. The field. So in TC Ching, right? The end zone, it really isn't much room. We see it when Nick Seneca celebrated with the student section. Like the student section is like right there, and then on the opposite side, the other end zone too, it's kind of like that. So the field goal where Kansei first made against Washington State, it was kind of like that, right? The end zone, the behind the touchdown and the end zone there was like barely any space for anything. It's very cramped. So that's something that Kansei is used to. Now the field goal that he missed, there is a lot of real estate behind the field goal post. Like there's a lot of green. Like I think if they have college game day, that's where they can set up their their little riser and all that. And then even the field goal net that Kansei was kicking into behind the field goal post was much farther. So and the other side, the other end zone, the stands are flat, like it's just a square, while on the end zone where he missed, the stands and the fans and the audience, it's kind of like in a little curved half circle U shape, like an oval. So again, not trying to make excuses. Like if you are the kicker, it is your job to make the field goal, right?
Yes.
But again, he is somebody that learned how to kick via YouTube, and he didn't have kicking is all a mental game too, right? So we think it should be automatic, but sometimes it's not automatic. And Kansei, that's probably the first time in his career where the University of Hawaii is like, hey Kansei, this might be one of those grind out games like you see on Sunday Night Football with the Jets and Steelers, where we're gonna need some field goals, right? And we saw with the Jets against the Bills the other week that, sometimes even though your name is Greg the Leg, you could miss. So, again, it's all a mental game. And, again, our red zone wasn't that bad. I don't think the play calling was that bad, but still, we need to figure it out. I know Braden likes throwing to Pofele, so that kind of hurts. But I would like to see us kind of put in a Dalen Morris kind of type red zone or package. Just a different package to give us another boost. Maybe it's that's something that we could help with, like our scout team could do, because there are practicing as the opposing offenses. Maybe because I mean, we many times now we've kind of left points on the board. Like if our red zone offense was better, hey, we're up 14-0 at the half
Hmm.
against UCLA. Hey, we're maybe 7-7 or with Boise at halftime. Hey, maybe we're actually up 10-7 or we're up 14-7 against Washington State. So that's one thing where I think Timmy needs to kind of get back in the drawing board, get back in the lab, and figure something out. Maybe drop a package, because again, Timmy did really great between the 20s. We had a Cool, you were probably going down the building as Coach Richhill passed you by, but we actually had a flea flicker on that second drive. We had we had a midline read with Shager pulling the ball from Hines and running it up the gut for 10 minutes. For Devin Tawefa got into the game as a as a tight end, as a block on some of these screens. We had some of those number counts, RPOs, where Braden will check to the sideline. If the numbers favor us, he's going to throw a screen. If not, he's just going to hand it off to Cam Barfield. And Cam Barfield, I really hope he's with this program for a long time, because he is a one cut back. Like he knows
He
like
looks
he just
good.
makes, yeah, he just makes one cut and takes off. Like he doesn't run with hesitation. And there is a lot to be. I mean, if I want to be positive about this game, it's the future, right? Cam Barfield's young. Lester Langafuaina
Ooh,
got
boy.
some very extended time. I think Tariq. I don't know if Tariq Jones played. I think Tariq Jones didn't make the trip, or he was hurt or whatnot. But he looked phenomenal. Even some of our special teamers were freshmen. I know Pofela's brother Jarvis Heimuli was a gunner. We had the Kamehameha grad Tristan Waiamau Galindo playing some special teams. So the future is bright. It's just we just gotta support each other, guys.
Michael, after Michael went on that extensive just breakdown of everything, and then found a way to kind of from afar kind of punch Paul in the gut there for
It was pretty good.
and
I
then
was
just kept going.
I was impressed.
And just kept going. Anywho, we do need to step aside for a quick break. We're going to take a break from our UH football conversation for a little bit. But of course, you guys, like we always say, we got 2 hours for a reason, because we'll get to more UH football in the hour number 2, specifically because, Michael, I want to pick your brain a little bit about why Hawaii, and it could be as simple of explanation as Washington State being able to, with their coaching staff, figure things out, why Hawaii was able to come out of the second half and move the ball around and score a touchdown, and then we never saw that happen again. But we will talk about that again in hour number 2. Also coming up in hour number 2, high school football, girls volleyball conversation. But for now, I want to come back and close out hour number 1 with more University of Hawaii talk, but on the women's side, as the soccer team doing big things. Let's go. All right. Gonna take a quick break. We'll be right back in a couple of minutes here on the Hawaii Sports Radio Network.
Wake Up in the Den with Ku'ulei Agbayani on the Hawai'i Sports Radio Network, 95.1 FM and AM 760.
Welcome back to Wake Up in the Den, Ku'ulei Agbayani and Paul Brecht. All right, like I said, we'll get back to more UH football a little later, and coming up in hour number 2, get into a lot of high school sports going on, specifically football and girls volleyball as it deals with the playoffs, and give you your ILH scenarios as well with football and girls volleyball. But we want to make sure we take some time to talk about and give so much credit to the University of Hawaii women's soccer team. I, for one, am happy that I am not a jinx. I thought about that the entire time last week because we had JC Jika on last week as our Mana Wahine Wednesday featured guest, which you can go and listen to on demand, and also check out Paul Brecht's write-up at hawaiisportsradio.com. We also chatted with Coach Michelle Nagamine, which you can also listen to on demand from Friday's show. And all I could think about was, oh my goodness, like, I hope I'm not going to be the jinx. I have like all of this conversation with soccer, and they're like the unbeaten streak is going to end. But whoo! Thank you, ladies, for not making me have a clear conscience now, because taking care of business yesterday against UC Riverside, beating them 2-1. The shutout, 5-game shutout streak does come to an end, but nonetheless, the more important thing is that they walked away with the win. Goals for UH scored by Kate Sheehan, assisted by Bryn Mitchell, and freshman phenom doing her thing, Nalani Damasian, also scoring with an assist from Mia Foster. At this point, you're wait. If Nalani does not score, it's almost like shocking.
Let me go one step further. If Nalani does not score the game winner, it's literally all she does. She's the most clutch freshman I've ever seen in my life. It's unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
Like, what are we?
So good. What are we doing here?
You were kind of a jinx, though, I will say, because JC Jika got a yellow card in this one. No,
yellow
just
card,
kidding. That's how we like to have our player. We assert a little bit of dominance, but not too much to get a red card like UC Riverside did.
Well, it was kind of like that other game where we looked at it and like Hawaii had like 11 penalties to like the other team's like 3, and I'm like, man, what are you gonna do? At least we're aggressive, and that's actually a big thing for this Hawaii team. They are just so aggressive. Like, they are like, I don't even know like the best way to describe it except for that. Like, you guys have to see it for yourself. Like, just how quick they close out to the ball, and they're just always like, it doesn't even matter. You just, nope, there will be a Hawaii player. They're just so extremely aggressive and continues to take it to the other team. Again, Hawaii improves to 10-6-1, 6-0-1 in the Big West Conference, and that is the first time they've gotten to 10 wins in 17 years, you guys. 17 years to 10 wins, and here it is. Big year for the Rainbow Wahine, and as Coach Bud likes to say, hashtag, though, not POW yet. Not POW yet, because it is not POW yet, but still, we can celebrate for everything they've accomplished so far this season. Best start in program history, and I was not aware that it's been that long, 17 years, since they've gotten to 10 wins. And because of that, and getting that win over UC Riverside, have already locked up a spot in the Big West postseason. So they're in it in the tournament. Of course, still going to try to tally up those wins, of course, for seeding purposes, and wanting to at least win the Big West regular season outright, because that would be a huge accomplishment for this Rainbow Wahine squad. But the 9-game unbeaten streak now, it lives on. Again, shutout streak ends, but the unbeaten streak lives on for the Rainbow Wahine. 9 games. Like, you guys, anyone that doesn't keep up with soccer, like, that's really difficult to do, especially when you play in a competitive conference like the Big West. We talked to Coach Bud about it last week, and she was saying, yeah, UC Riverside, if you look at like a whole in the standings, they are the lesser team compared to Hawaii, but it's soccer. And
all it takes is
a breakthrough and a shot from outside that just falls right below the crossbar or something, and anything can happen for the other team that's coming into town. But Hawaii able to hang tough and beat UC Riverside and come out with that win.
By the way, all 6 of Nalani's goals are game winners. That's the national lead for game winners among freshmen. She is unbelievable, just like the rest of this Rainbow Wahine soccer team. Congratulations to them on clinching and punching their ticket to the postseason. And like you said, Coach Bud says, not POW yet.
Not POW yet. And one more thing I want to bring up that Coach Bud mentioned when she was on the show last week is, so we talk about freshman Nalani Demasian, right? In most teams, I'm sure players, especially veteran players, would get maybe a little jealous, and then that could start to affect the team because, oh, I'm not getting the goals. And one thing that Coach Bud really talks about this team is that they are so unselfish. And she pointed out that Amber Gilbert, again, a veteran player, only has one goal of the season so far, but Amber made the point where it's like, I don't care if I score goals as long as we get a win. And that can be rare with some teams where you have the senior player that is not getting the back of the net, and then you have the freshman getting, like how Paul said, 6 game-winning goals. And that could sometimes affect a team and the chemistry, and there could be everyone like not getting what they want and the playing time they want. But Coach Bud gives a lot of credit to this team and just for being unselfish, and you can just see it in their play. They work well together. Everyone's aggressive, and I just wanted to make sure we remind everybody about that. That's part of a big reason why this Hawaii team has just been so successful this season is all the players coming in. And that's just a perfect blend of the veteran players and the new players. And this is what we see, guys, but not POW yet. We are POW with hour number 1, though. We're way up against the clock, so we'll be back for hour number 2 on the Hawaii Sports Radio Network.
to more Wake Up in the Den with Ku'ulei Agbayani on the Hawai'i Sports Radio Network, 95.1 FM and AM 760.
Welcome back to Wake Up in the Den, hour number 2. Hope you guys are up by now. Ku'ulei Agbayani and Paul Brecht and Michael Lescaro joining us via Zoom-ish. Yeah, Zoom.
Zoom-ish.
Not in studio with us today, but with us from afar. As he mentioned, we had a really packed weekend all over the place and took a power nap, and the power nap didn't work out entirely.
So I've done that exact thing before where it was like I had an early-ish late night, if that makes sense. I wake up at like 3:30, 4 o'clock, and I'm like, I can go back to sleep. And then all of a sudden, the alarms suddenly just are no longer there. I think I texted you one day at like 7:53. I'm like, I'm so sorry. I'm on my way. I'm going to miss the first segment. So it happens to us all.
It happens to us all. All right, coming up in this hour, we will get to your high school football and high school girls volleyball conversation and updated with playoff scenarios. Also, we'll get into more UH football conversation coming up a little later in this hour. But first, before we get back into things, I want to say something that I completely forgot to open the show with, and I apologize because my notes were... Oh, and as I still had the ball...
It's all right. Everybody wants to see me. Everybody wants to see me drink.
We're not working to start off the show because that's what happens. You know, technology is great until the internet decides to be slow, and cameras were doing camera things, and then I completely got flustered and forgot. But you guys want to make sure we wish happy birthday to Paul. Woo!
Woo! Happy birthday, Paulie B.
Paulie B.
Woo! So it is Paul's birthday. He is a quarter of a century years old now, and you're getting up there, man. You're that much closer to my age.
All of a sudden, these years have started to fly by. That's okay, though. Cool day. Happy to be here. Happy to be talking sports with some of my favorite folks. And then I actually have some family on the island right now taking a vacation. My Uncle Joe and Aunt Julie are out here, so I think we're going to go get a couple of drinks, perhaps dinner tonight as well. So it'll be a good day, fun day.
Sounds good. Awesome. There you go. Paulie B's 25th birthday. Woo!
Also, hey, shout out to...
You can rent a car without having to pay the fee now.
That's true. My wife will be excited about that. Shout out to HPU Associate Head Coach Cam Flabel as well, who is celebrating his birthday today. He turns 26, so he's even more old than I am, decrepit old man. No, happy birthday to him as well. And anybody else, any of the beautiful people who are listening who also might be celebrating your birthday today. Happy to share my day with you. I'm glad our day has so many great people celebrating on it.
It sounds good, and hopefully we'll get Paul to... He's not too hungover for a 2-hour show, but we'll see.
Yeah.
No promises.
Big drinker. What can you say?
All right. Getting into our high school football conversation. There's a lot of stuff to get into. So probably like the first half of this hour, we'll talk all about high school sports, get you guys updated. But let's go back to the game that we had on our station. I know there were a lot of big games. Trust me, everybody. Yes, we will get to the Campbell and Kahuku game. But first, want to give love to the game that you heard on this station while that other game was going on, and that being Kalahale and Kaimuki. Kalahale beating Kaimuki 38-13. And before I get Paul's and Michael's just overall thoughts on that game as they were on the call that night, want to let you guys hear some post-game, though, as our Michael Lescaro does and gets a chance to catch up with some of the players and sometimes coaches after the game. So we'll start off with Michael and Kalahale head football coach Jameson Lee.
Congrats on this win. You know, you guys definitely needed this to stay in the playoff race. So that first quarter, a lot of turnovers, but you guys bounced back. So talk about the job you boys did.
Yeah, we had a lot of turnovers, like you said. We just had to correct ourselves. A lot of misassignments, just a lot of us shooting ourselves in the foot. So had to kind of reset, remind them of the task at hand, and just correct ourselves. And they did a good job at taking the coaching and doing what they're supposed to do.
You're a former quarterback at Castle High, right?
Correct.
I've seen you guys pass for 7 touchdowns in a single game against Kalani, but today the passing game wasn't really going, but the ground game was. So kind of talk about you guys adapting to what was working for you guys.
Yeah, of course, I love passing, right? I love to throw the ball, but you got to take what the defense gives you. We felt like our linemen were in shape enough to keep running the ball. Our running backs did a good job this week, so our game plan was just to try and run the ball, take a little pressure off our quarterback. All we got to do is hand it off, and eventually we can open up the pass.
Yeah. But you guys weren't really using your top running backs. I think Bubs was not in the game, and then Kamalu got to play more defense, so Nainoa and then Vance and then especially the offensive lineman, and then even Mormon, your backup quarterback and your kicker getting a running touchdown. So kind of talk about the backups kind of stepping up.
Yeah, we really worked on that this week on having everybody ready to play. Like you said, there's playoff contentions ahead, right? If we win out and certain teams lose, so if we can get out without using certain guys, we were going to try and do that. And I felt everybody whose name was called stepped up to the plate and did their job.
The guy that recovered the opening kickoff was Jeremiah Toilolo. He recovered that. He also got 2 interceptions on defense. He's not that big, but he kind of showed up today. Talk about him.
Oh yeah, Jerry. Yeah, he has the biggest heart on our team, man. He's not scared. He flies around. And he does anything you ask him to do without hesitation. Everything's yes, coach. Real respectful kid from a really great family. So, yeah, good to have him on our team.
And then last question, we mentioned Kamalu Jordan. He's usually on offense, but today he would have to play corner and press coverage against one of the top receivers on their team. So talk about him showing his athleticism on playing any position.
Yeah, he stepped up to the plate on that. He take whatever responsibility we give him, whether it's running the ball, receiving it, playing defense. So we want to be able to give him his rest when we're on offense, and so he can try and play shutout defense on one of the top receivers.
One more question.
Yep.
You guys play your alma mater next week.
Yep.
They're homecoming. What can we expect?
Castle always shows up to play, man. That's just how it's always been. I'm sure the whole community would be there, whether they're rooting me on or rooting against me. But I love my community. There's nothing like it. So it's going to be good to go back home and on the opposing side again. But just try to put forward what I was brought up in as a Castle player myself. Just go out and fight to the end, and that's what we plan on doing.
And that was Kalaheo football head coach Jameson Lee with our Michael Lescaro following their big win over Kaimuki on Saturday. Now here's our Timmy T's grinder of the game, Vance Ramolete.
Alrighty, Vance, big win for you guys. You guys needed this win to stay in the playoff push. Talk about the job that you guys did tonight.
Yeah, we did a really good job on moving the ball. Our running game was really strong. I want to shout out my line for creating those holes for me. They really allowed me to succeed and show off my potential.
You guys are kind of down a couple running backs. I think Kamala has to play more defense, and I guess Bubs didn't play today. Talk about you guys, the backups kind of coming in and doing their thing.
Yeah, so our backups did a really good job stepping up. We're just prepared for next week for Castle.
That first quarter, there's a lot of turnovers, but that first play of the second quarter when you kind of just ran for 62 yards, how much did that kind of change the game for you guys?
Changed the game a lot. It really motivated us to keep pushing, try to get this win. So, yeah. Yeah,
the passing game usually, you guys get like 7 touchdowns in passing against Kalani, but today you guys needed the running game. Kind of talk about that and being able to not only you can kind of adapt and switch your guys' offense.
Yeah, so we're just kind of trying to switch it up, not give the same look every game, So, yeah.
And then special teams, you guys recovered 4 kickoffs, and that really kind of took possessions away from Kamuki. So talk about those guys on special teams making those plays.
Oh, man. They're great. They're just doing their job, really stepping up. So.
How are you guys going to build from this game moving forward?
Well, we got Castle next, so just got to watch film and rest up our players.
Yeah. Your head coach, Jameson Lee, he's a Castle grad, so you think there's going to be a little bit more exciting game in that game?
Yep. He really wants this win, so it's going to be exciting.
That was our Michael Lescaro with Vance Ramolete, the grinder, Timmy T's grinder of the game, following our broadcast on Saturday between Kalaheo and Kaimuki, in which Kaimuki came out on top 38-13. And before that, you heard Michael with Kalaheo head football coach Jameson Lee. As they mentioned, a big win that they needed to get. They do play Castle, and Castle currently second in the OIA Division II standings. You can go to Scoring Live to see those. Kaiser at the top, so it's Kaiser, Castle, Roosevelt, Waialua, and then Kalaheo. So, Michael, I want to bring you in here and just kind of talk through just some of the scenarios as it deals with the OIA Division II with the one last game to play for their regular season this weekend.
Yeah, I kind of just outlined it in the in the web post, you can read the little small mini recap of the story on Saturday night on our website now at hawaiisportsradio.com. But yeah, Kalaheo definitely needed this win to stay in the playoff push. They lost the key game in double overtime to Wailua. So Wailua has the head-to-head against Kalaheo. So right now it's actually Kalaheo and Wailua are both 3-3 in the standings. So Wailua hosts Roosevelt next week, while Kalaheo goes to Castle. So Kalaheo needs a win over Castle and a Wailua loss to be 4-3. They would get the go ahead, and Wailua will be 3-4. Now Kalani actually has a chance to get in there. Because like we mentioned the standings, right? Like Castle's 5-1, Roosevelt's 5-1, but Kalani, because they beat Wailua, if Kalani beats Kamuki next week, they will be 3-4. Kalaheo's 3-4. Wailua's 3-4. So then it would be a coin flip for that fourth and final berth, which is kind of interesting and funny at the same time. But yeah, Roosevelt, they're in control of their destiny. They just got to make sure that they're at the top. They lost to Kaiser, so as long as they have a same record as Kaiser, Roosevelt will be the number one. Kaiser, they play McKinley, so it's almost a guarantee that Kaiser is gonna get a win. McKinley might shock us. McKinley might shock us again.
Hey, never count out the Tigers.
That's kind of how the postseason picture looks like. So pretty much Kaiser, Castle, Roosevelt are all in, and it's a dogfight for the last spot.
Ooh, something that is settled, and we'll get to Division I in just a little bit, but I know a lot of people, one thing that is settled for sure is the Open Division now, as there were some big-time games that happened over the weekend. So as the Open Division shakes up, it's Campbell, Mililani, Kahuku, and Kapolei. Kahuku not being able to beat Campbell. Campbell coming out in Laie 21-13, in which we saw Matai Fuyava get into the game, and by all accounts, he did look like really good. Like, he looks like a solid quarterback. He can sling the rock. He looks good, and I think it's going to be interesting down the stretch on how much more the offense will gel for Kahuku. The more reps he gets, the more chance he gets to learn the playbook. Again, we saw some audio, I think it was by Sienna Pilotin from Hawaii News Now, that he kind of made a little chuckle about only running, what was it, like 9 plays or something? Five plays for Kahuku.
Call that a handful, folks.
Yeah, literally. So I think it's going to be a very interesting Open Division playoff to go down the stretch. As it stands right now, though, it would be the 1-4. So you would have Kapolei and Campbell and Mililani and Kahuku. So anything can happen in these playoffs and the breakdown. But Michael, I know we were calling the game with Kalaheo and Kaimuki that we just talked about. So when you guys came back to the studio, we were able to watch a little bit about that. So Paul and Michael, what were some of the things that you noticed towards or down the stretch of that Campbell and Kahuku game that we were watching at the end?
Jaren Keave Songapolatelli just makes play after play. But the receivers that Campbell employs are tough. Like, they're just tough, man. They make important winning plays at the right time. You think at the very end of the game, a throw from Jaren that, I mean, just to be honest, a lot of high schoolers drop or don't get to before it gets to the ground. I believe it was Alviar Costa that gets his hands under it and then picks up, 6, 7, 8 yards, and then they're able to move the chains. They're able to run out the rest of the clock, and it's impressive that Campbell was able to go up onto the North Shore, even with, and I understand all of the issues that come with the midweek transfer and how difficult that is as a player in a team or whatever. This Kahuku team is incredibly talented. We've talked a lot about their defense. Their defense probably is still a top 50 unit in the nation. I don't think that's unfair, and that probably is underselling it, to be totally honest. And nonetheless, Campbell goes out there and takes care of business. It was very impressive. But I am really curious about how Kahuku could look here in a couple of weeks. Could they continue this season even further and further and further?
Yeah, because now they have that bye week. How about from you, Michael?
Yeah, so you think Campbell with Jaren Sangapolotele. They won. So he's like, oh, Jaren was slinging it up and down the field, and he was 18 for 25. But Kahuku actually had more passing attempts than Campbell, which is kind of interesting. But I think you gotta give also credit to not only the defense but the offensive line, because this was a season high 19 carries for Bryson Sansano. And he also ran for 2 touchdowns. I think he scored the first touchdown on the first play of the second quarter. And he scored a much needed touchdown midway through the third quarter. And I also want to point out, the reason why I bring up the running back, because Campbell's starting running back last year, and James Stephanie Fiavi, I believe his name is, he transferred out but got hurt in like one of the first 2 games. I think he got hurt in the first game of the season. Guess what school he transferred to? Kahuku. So that's a little another element that no one's talking about that I think it's kind of funny, because hey,
Michael
this
from
guy
the top
transfers
rope with
out.
that
I
information.
got another running back coming in and getting his reps, and he had a phenomenal job. But yeah, I know Kahuku, Campbell, they were definitely playing a little bit more conservative, because Paul is right. This Kahuku defense is I could say top 25 defense, because let me just tell you, look, I'm on 247 Sports. Let me tell you the players on their defense and what college they're committed to. You have linebacker Max Fonoi Moana going to Utah. Safety Mana Carvalho going to Utah. Safety Aiden Monotai going to California. Defensive lineman LeBron Williams going to California. And edge rusher Benjamin Roberts going to Nevada. And the list just keeps on. It just keeps on going on and on.
Half the starting defense is going D1.
A guy like Madden
already.
Soliai, who got an offer from Michigan, I believe. He's going to be one of the top DBs for the class of 2026. And then you also have uncommitted guys like Fale Atuaya, that's going to be making his commitment later in the year. So that this Kahuku squad is legitimate, and Kahuku definitely felt like they had the defense to beat Campbell even without Matai Fuyava. So it's gonna be definitely. I mean, Campbell perfect record right now, but when you have the target on your back, it's not that easy. So it's gonna be fun watching the playoffs. The Open Division playoffs, the semifinals. It will be a doubleheader on Spectrum OC16 on November 1st, Friday, at a quote unquote neutral location, because it's probably gonna be at Mililani.
Yeah.
And but that's. I'm not the one who makes the rules. I'm not the one who makes the schedule. I just report the facts.
And that is the facts. But before we move on real quick, I do want to point out when you talk about both Jaren Kiave and some of the defense on Kahuku, just one specific play. Oh my goodness, Mana Carvalho came up big, and Jaren Kiave, Sangapolutele, I believe they were about like 8 yards out, and Sangapolutele just wanted to get into the end zone, ran it, looked like he was going to get in. Mana Carvalho comes out the side, like pops him, helmet comes off. I'm freaking out because I'm like, don't hurt your cow brain that's gonna go over there. But he, for his credit, of course, Jaren Cow, it's not like he's a small guy. His helmet is off, and then he gets up and he's like, has the biggest smile on his face, picks up his helmet, jogs to the side. But Mana Carvalho, man, being able to hit him that hard to keep him out of the end zone, to his credit. And now that Kahuku defense, we'll see what happens down the stretch though, and it's going to be fireworks, everybody, next week. Friday, as Michael said. So we'll big time matchups.
2 Fridays.
2 Fridays. Oh yeah.
2 Fridays from
2 Fridays from now. Really?
Yeah, because you said the bye. Remember?
Yeah.
Right?
I said next week Friday.
Well, I don't know what
not
that
next
means.
Friday.
Okay, so
like not this Friday, next Friday.
Yeah, okay, yeah, all right. So we're all on the same
Okay,
page. We're
yeah,
all saying
like
the same
next week
thing.
Friday. Okay. All right, want to move over though to the ILH side now. Is St. Louis coming up humongous on Punahou, 50-14. And before we give you some of your ILH scenarios, because that stuff gets confusing, want to let you guys actually hear from what I lost my train of thought because I didn't put the thing on there. Want to let you hear from UH actually commit and St. Louis receiver Titan Lakaden and what he had to say post game. And it is actually star advertisers Kyle Sakamoto to start things off here.
You really showed your stuff today.
First and foremost, I just want to give all my glory and thanks to Jesus Christ. Without him, I'm nothing. But second of all, I just want to give everything out to my coaches, my teammates, the defense. Everybody played a part today. If it wasn't for the defense and the special team capitalizing on when we need to, have a turnover and give us the ball back, and just my line to the QBs, to the receivers, everybody blocking, doing their job, and I tip my hat off to them. It's really not me, it's all them.
You had a phenomenal 75-yard run, and you kind of weaved past everyone. Just talk about that, what you saw on that play.
Well, my coaches told me to stay patient, use my explosiveness to get through the line, and that's what I did. And the O-line did their thing; they blocked perfectly. And so I saw a nice little seam, and I hit it. And from there, it was just a foot race in green grass.
Yeah, another 80-yard run there. Talk about that one as well. First play of the second half, I believe.
Same thing, just trying to be patient, just looking for my reads, and I give all the credit to my line. These guys put in the work throughout. Every single week, every single day that we come out here, and these guys open up the holes, and my job is just to make guys look silly. And I feel like I'm doing my job, but I can't do my job without everybody else. So I thank them.
Regular season's done. How much of tonight do you feel you guys made a statement as you guys get ready for that second run, entering do you guys feel like you're in playoff mode at this point?
Definitely, I think we're starting to click on all cylinders of the game. Just the main thing for us is just being consistent, and just continue to put work onto the practice field. And obviously, you can see today that everything that we put in on the practice field is paying off.
You guys worried about the draw or how it's gonna go? If it could go in your favor, it might not go in your favor.
That's really not on our mind. Our mind is just winning that ILH, and whatever we got to do to make that happen, we're gonna get it done, and we're gonna finish the mission.
Your team scored on the first drive. It was a fourth down long pass. It kind of feel like it gave your team momentum going into the rest of the game.
Well, we finally got all our weapons back. Jordan Nanua is coming back from an injury, and he's the guy that put us out of that hole. And that's what we need. We need playmakers, and that's what we are.
And that was St. Louis receiver and University of Hawaii football commit Titan Lakaden for St. Louis following their big 50-14 win over Punahou. And the ILH scenarios are a bit more interesting than the OIA. So, Michael, if you can explain to the beautiful people what we're looking at here when it comes to the open division in the ILH here down the stretch.
Yeah, so the ILH, they just play a 4-game regular season, which is split up into 2 rounds. So St. Louis were 2-0 in the first round, so they are the round 1 champ, and everybody else is 1-1 in the second round. So there's going to be a 3-team playoff to determine the round 2 champ, and if the round 2 champ and the round 1 champ is not the same, then they will play again for the ILH championship. Now, for St. Louis, there's going to be a coin flip. There's going to be a card draw to determine who gets the bye. And if St. Louis doesn't get the bye, they're just going to forfeit that game because they already have that additional not backdoor, but the safety net game. Mm. It's, if you watch Survivor, it's like Immunity Idol or like Immunity, and then you just go to, it's almost like a double bye anyways. But yeah, so I guess that's why there's some letters being sent to the ILH office, because St. Louis went 3-1 in the regular season. And I think they do have a reason to be upset. For me, I would probably just say, just put them in a tournament, make St. Louis get the bye automatically, and then you have to beat St. Louis twice to get there. That's what makes sense, and that's what has been done in the past. So, yeah.
Hey,
it'll work itself out.
I get it. And yeah, we'll follow it more. Obviously, as the week goes on, we'll get you guys more of the scenarios that comes into fold. I want to at least just real quick get into some girls volleyball as well. Again, coming up a little after our next break, we'll get back to University of Hawaii football, but I want to make sure we get you caught up with some of the girls volleyball action going on. Today will be the OIA Division 1 semifinals, and you can watch that on Spectrum OC16. So in semifinal number 1, these games are at Mililani. First game is at 5:30. That will be between Moanalua and Kalaheo. And then semifinal number 2 will be between Kapolei and Kahuku. And the championship game for Division 1 will be on Wednesday to follow the Division 2 game that will be between Castle and Farrington. And we'll actually hear from the Castle and Farrington head coaches coming up in tomorrow's show. But just to kind of recap with Castle and Farrington, Castle actually sweeping Farrington in the regular season. So this will be maybe one that, hey, Farrington wants to come back and win. But those games, you can hear the championship games on Wednesday right here on the Hawaii Sports Radio Network. Or if you guys do have Spectrum, you can watch it on Spectrum OC 16. So, Michael, similar to football, the ILH side of girls volleyball can tend to get a little wonky as well. So, what are we looking at with the ILH side of girls volleyball?
Whoa! The girls volleyball side is not that wonky. It's more wonky as football. I don't want to name names, but I do like the girls volleyball coordinator for the ILH. So he's doing a phenomenal job. Always keeping me well versed in everything. But yeah, so in Division 1, it's actually kind of settled. Iolani is the ILH champ, so they won't play another game till next Thursday, I believe. Because they're gonna have the bye into the state tournament. While Kamehameha, as the runner-up, will host next Monday. Will host either the OAF 5 or the BAAF 3 in the state tournament. Now on the Division 2 side, they actually have less teams in Division 2, so they only have 3 berths instead of 4 berths. So HBA and Le Jardin, they already are in the state tournament because they have was better in the regular season. Now there's a tournament that's not for the championship, but it's for the 3rd berth. It's actually going to be between Damien and Sacred Hearts, I believe. Sacred Hearts, they were I think they're in 9, but they beat a UH Lab team that reached the final last year, the state final last year. So, it's going to be between Damien and Sacred Hearts on Tuesday night at Damien 6 p.m. So if you want to follow that, you can go there.
And you can go to scoringlive.com, obviously, with our partnership there, bringing you guys between us. We're bringing you the best overall coverage of Hawaii high school sports here. But now we're going to close the door on high school sports for today anyways and get back to University of Hawaii football conversation. So I'm going to take a quick break and we'll be back in like 2 minutes here and get back to UH football next on the Hawaii Sports Radio Network.
Back to more Wake Up in the Den with Ku'ulei Agbayani on the Hawaii Sports Radio Network, 95.1 FM and AM 760.
Welcome back to all of you, the beautifulest of all the beautiful people. It's Wake Up in the Den. Alongside Paul Brecht, I'm Ku'ulei Agbayani and Michael Esquero joining us remotely today, making all the magic happen with technology here as he is joining us to talk some University of Hawaii football. We got into a lot of stuff in the first hour. If you guys missed it, be sure to listen or watch on demand at hawaiisportsradio.com, wherever you get your podcast, or on our YouTube channel, as we are streaming live on YouTube like we do this and every Monday. So be sure to like and subscribe if you want to be even the most beautifuler of the beautifulest people, beautiful people. We appreciate all of you guys for your support. But going back to University of Hawaii football, where we saw the Rainbow Warriors fall 42-10 at Pullman, Washington against Washington State. Already had the stacks against us, as had some significant players out, especially offensively, in not having Pefele Ashlock and Dekel Crowdis, and then defensively not having Peter Manuma and Sibo Brown. So you already go into it that way, but got on the board first, and then just had some untimely and costly turnovers that led to 21 points for Washington State. But, go into halftime, come out in the second half and able to drive down the field. And Michael, that's where I kind of want to get your X's and O takes, because in the first hour you were talking about a lot of this you don't really put on the coaching staff, as they were able to work in some plays that you actually haven't seen before. And we saw Cam Barfield actually get a lot of action and whatnot. And that play, that touchdown coming out of halftime, I mean, they were driving down the full field, went 7 plays for 75 yards and just over 4 minutes. And we thought, all right, here we go. So Hawaii able to chip away at the lead for Washington State. So Washington State at that point only up 21-10, and it's very much a ball game again heading into that second half. But from what you saw, why did it just become that? But why did we not see that ever again happen for UH? Like, what adjustments did you notice that Washington State had made defensively, and why Hawaii just couldn't score after that? Again, first score opening the second half, and then not being able to score after that drive.
Yeah, I mean, for one, it's just we didn't get much opportunities to possess the ball. I think in Neil Iwamoto's post game notes, I think we ran a season low 53 plays or something like that. Because after we scored to make it 21-10, John Mateer kind of showed up and showed his legs. Paul mentioned earlier in the show that there was a 1st and 20 after a holding call, but he scrambles for 12 yards, and that makes it from 1st and 20 to 2nd and 8 and manageable. And there's many times in this drive where Mateer used his legs. I think one time too was in a little tush push out of the I formation, and he also scored the run. He got out to the edge and ran the ball, design run play, and also ran in the touchdown. And on the following possession is that strip sack or loose ball that Shager lost because the free rusher came at him, and pretty soon it was, instead of 21-10, it was 35-10, was it there? No, it was 35-10, and then I think UH just couldn't get anything going. There was that 4th down attempt on 4th and 2 when UH finally run a speed option, but Talon Hines not able to power his way in for a first down, which it probably would have been a first down, and we would have drive. But after that turnover on downs inside our own territory, Washington State scores a touchdown. So Washington State on 4 of their 6 scoring drives started in UH territory. And then we saw, I think Hawaii punted it early in the 4th quarter, and Washington State got the ball back with 7:52 remaining in the game. And I think at that point we were rotating in our backups, getting them some playing time, and Washington State was able to burn the final 7:52, almost 8 minutes of the clock, and we didn't get the ball back. And Washington State could have scored too. Instead they took kneel downs in the red zone. So yeah, it just kind of got away from us very quickly. And again, it just like the whole season, right? Earlier in the year, I was like, oh, if only we didn't have those penalties, if only we didn't have those sacks. And this game was only if we didn't have those turnovers. And that's why, again, like, I think we got to give grace to the coaching staff, because I mean, we saw last year, right? Our defense could not tackle, and our offense was keeping us in games. And special teams was kind of also having some miscues. I know Coach Timmy spent some time on the defensive side of things, especially getting Coach Thurman and on special teams to make that an emphasis. But now our offense is kind of limited. So that's something that definitely needs to be addressed in the offseason. Maybe Timmy needs to get a play caller to come in. Now that's the question for the future, because again, I said Timmy drew up at least 10 different new plays that I've never seen them use before. But a lot of those plays come outside of the bounds or outside of the confines of the running term. So it's kind of that's the more philosophical question: is are we gonna run the run and shoot as our primary offense, or are we gonna kind of meld into what Timmy does? Because what Timmy is doing is it's amazing. He's getting players the ball in space. Like Thailand out of the empty set, he ran routes that we haven't seen him run before. Usually it was a corner route. This time was like a little shimmy post over the middle of the field. And our offense has, and Braden, even to his credit too, has learned to take some off the ball. The play that Thailand caught the receiving touchdown is the same play design, just flipped on the opposite side of the field, where in the second quarter before the missed field goal, that's the same play. And this time Braden was able to kind of not fire it and able to get it over the linebacker's head and kind of float it into a space where only Thailand can run under and get it. So there is improvement. It's just this one kind of got away from us really quickly with the turnovers and just Washington State having a deeper playbook and a deeper personnel. And that's just kind of how it was.
Yeah, it was frustrating because it did feel like it should have been far closer, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it really, once again, comes to those turnovers and the critical mistakes in those big moments. I like the points that Michael brings up with a lot of the positives with the play calling, right? And that the coaching staff is still trying things where at this point in the season, it feels like it would be easy to pack it in for the future, and they still are focused on this year, right? Where they are trying to figure things out week in and week out. It's, I can't really get over the turnovers, unfortunately, just because you do see the improvements in areas. You do see them self-correcting, even in game, right? Michael with another great little... if you guys, once again, I said this on Twitter, if you guys don't follow Michael at this point, I don't know what you're doing. He does a really nice job breaking down a lot of little things and a lot of little film breakdown stuff where if you can make that adjustment with Thailand, where you can make the score happen, the touchdowns, we talked about it earlier in the show, the difference between touchdowns and field goals, or even just missed field goals now, is massive, is absolutely massive, and it helps your defense out more if they can play with a lead. They can play a little bit more loose, where one mistake, one slip, all of a sudden explosive play, and they're like, oh man, you can't play tight on defense. And it does feel like at times Hawaii has to play tight because they're out there so much. They're understanding they can't make a mistake, and then mistakes happen still.
Yeah, and like you said, I mean, like both of you guys said, this was just a matter of personnel. It came down to where the Washington State is just, they just had more talent and had all their players healthy and had a quarterback that could do multiple things. And
John Mateer is impressive.
Yeah, watching them adjust to anything Hawaii had to do. I do want to point out, though, that like after Washington State kind of felt like they were really running away with it, I think it was after that touchdown that put them up 28-10. Kind of saw them start to work in their second string throughout the rest of the game, and then in that fourth quarter. And then they were still able to score and Hawaii not get stopped and all of that stuff. So I think that part got a little frustrating for me watching it down the stretch. Like, how are we being contained now by their backups that are coming in here and making it look like they're their first string? But again, after a while, even when you're Hawaii, you're just getting, exhausted and going through this and not getting stopped. It weighs on you, not just physically, but also mentally with these types of games. And we mentioned too, Pullman, we've mentioned it last week, not an easy place to play by any means. But I think when you look at Hawaii side, I think that's the one question that people are still having, including, I know we always talked about it in here, that this could have been a game when maybe you, especially with Braden just taking like those hits after hits, and you could tell the frustration on his face where you were kind of wondering, like, why didn't we see maybe John Keave, Sangapolutele get in there through down the stretch? We make our reasons why. We probably don't want to see Micah yet, don't want to burn his red shirt, maybe wait towards the ending of the season to see Micah Alihado get in there, even though, as we mentioned, he's second on the depth chart by it looks according to everything we've seen so far. But yeah, I was kind of curious as to why you didn't just, because we saw it happen. When was it, last season, where they just kind of threw in Jake Farrell, and then everyone was like, oh, that's probably why he doesn't play that much. It's the very end. So you're going to keep Braden Shager in there. He is by far your best quarterback on the team, hands down. So against Boise State, I was not expecting any of the backups to come in to just try it out. But in a game like this, you kind of wanted to maybe see one of the backups at least get in there. Again, being Micah, I will not consider him going in because I do not want him to burn his redshirt year. Maybe down the stretch we see him, but in this type of game, like, it was kind of, why do we not see someone else go in?
I mean, you guys know that I am almost maybe the biggest Braden Shager defender at this point in terms of there's no reason to bench him. This one was almost obvious to take him out of the game, not even for, anything other than just save your quarterback from taking more hits in a year that he has been absolutely skewered. 24 sacks this season, Braden Shager, through 7 games is brutal. It's like there's no way around it. On top of that, he gets hit a ton because he goes out and he runs and he tries to put his body on the line for the team, or he holds onto the ball too long and then lets go late and then gets hit like that. Even just to save him from extra hits, put in a young guy to see what they have. And then a part of it is Braden Shager is gone after this year, right? And you and I, we've talked quite a bit about preserving the red shirt for Micah Alejado, and that's probably why you won't see him till the final 3 games of this season. But even so, maybe give John Keave, Songapulatelli an opportunity to show that, hey, I'm here to compete with Micah Alejado for next starting quarterback of the University of Hawaii, and so on and so forth. Or even if it's not anything further than just giving John a chance to close out the game in a game that is over. I didn't understand not taking out Braden to save him hits and not taking a look at one of your other quarterbacks just in a game that was well out of reach in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, so we'll left to be seen. Anyways, got to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. Up here. I was like, wait, I just went quiet.
That's on me. Hand up.
We'll be quick to wrap things up here on the Hawaii Sports Radio Network.
Wake Up in the Den with Ku'ulei Agbayani on the Hawaii Sports Radio Network, 95.1 FM and AM 760.
Welcome back to Wake Up in the Den. Ku'ulei Agbayani, Paul Brecht, and Michael Lescaro. All right, someone turning the page now on that game for UH and Washington State. As we mentioned, now the task to get to bowl eligibility is now all but disappearing, considering that they still have a few games left to play, including UNLV, who just keeps rolling as well, where that's someone that Hawaii has to face. So Hawaii would need to go undefeated 5-0 to down this stretch in order to even get to a bowl game, because just a reminder for everyone, even though they have those 2 wins, they are against FCS schools, so only one counts towards bowl eligibility. So Hawaii will need to win out in order to get into a bowl. So that's why it seems a little daunting task here on out. But still, if they only have to win 4 for myself to cover the future or their futures bet of 5.5 wins, because if there is something that counts with the FCS, it is on your bets. So at least we just need 5-1, please, 5-1. But still, nonetheless, a daunting task. And looking at what happened, not only does Hawaii plays Nevada for homecoming this Saturday, 6:00 p.m. at the Clarence T.C. Ching Athletics Complex. Big game, though, on Friday in the Mountain West, which we will preview a little later in the week, being that Boise State and UNLV will play the top 2 teams in the Mountain West Conference. Again, that is a Friday game, 4:30 p.m. on CBS Sports Network. Hopefully, we can kind of sneak out watching that a little bit before or prior to the men's basketball game on Friday at Hilo. But nonetheless, that is a big-time game. But looking at some of the scores that happened this past weekend in the Mountain West, because we, like I said, just want to turn the page ever so slightly. Going back to Friday, Fresno State just barely beating Nevada 24-21. You got New Mexico over Utah State 50-45. San Jose State continuing their winning ways over Wyoming. Wyoming on their part just sitting at 1-6 and 1-2 in the Mountain West. 24-14 over Wyoming. Colorado State also continuing their winning ways, 21-13 over Air Force, and then UNLV again improving to 6-1 on the season after beating Oregon State in Corvallis 33-25. So Mountain West shaking up to be quite interesting, especially for those top teams. But Hawaii left on their schedule. Again, homecoming against Nevada. Then you have to go and play at Fresno State, come back and host UNLV, go back on the road to Logan to play Utah State, and then wrap up the regular season against New Mexico. So, boys, what are we thinking now down the stretch here for the Rainbow Warriors?
I'm thinking that there is not an easy game left on the schedule, and that's a little terrifying in ways, but I also think that every season under Timmy Chang, it seems that they've figured it out in the second half of the year a little bit more. I think back to the final 4-game stretch of last season where they went 3-1. Can they refine some of that magic against teams who, while, like I said, there's not an easy game per se left on the schedule, none of these teams are world beaters outside of UNLV, right? UNLV going to be in probably pole position for most of the way. They have a big, like you said, big opportunity this weekend against Boise State. But outside of that, right, Fresno State, they've been in a lot of close games lately. Nevada, really similar to Fresno State, where they're kind of showing that they're good, but they are in so many close games that I don't know if you can say that. Utah State has just disappointed this year. They're not overall that good, and yet still, it is a hard place to play when you go to Logan. And then New Mexico, we just saw them put up another 50-burger, right? I mean, their offense is a little bit scary, a little bit interested to see how that goes. But I say all of that because I still believe Hawaii can win those games. And I think that you can make a statement for going forward with this program about kind of like what Michael started to say earlier, what the future can be with a lot of these young guys that are starting to flash, that have been recruited in by this coaching staff to come change things. And some of them a little bit younger than perhaps we expected, and some of them not clicking quite yet. But nonetheless, 5 games and 5 opportunities to show that future of Hawaii football might not be as grim as some prognosticators are making it out to be.
For sure. What about you, Michael? How are we looking for the rest of the season with the somewhat daunting juggernaut of a stretch that Hawaii has to close out the regular season?
Yeah, so earlier in the year, I kind of mapped out, like, I think we're gonna get wins here. I think we have 4 wins. And then we have teams that we're probably gonna lose to, and we had 4 question marks. So so far, my win prediction and been kind of correct. So I did predict that we're gonna beat Nevada this week. So I think that's first you gotta start is you gotta beat one, right? I think, and again, that's football, right? And we as fans were expecting a bowl bid, like even us on the show, right? It was like, oh, what is the number to win to get to bowl eligible? What is the number? Like how many games? Like how many losses do we have left? And it's like we just gotta focus on one game at a time. And I think that should be the message that Coach Timmy Chang and Coach Chris Brown and everybody there is like, hey, let's just win the next one. We don't care about being bowl eligible. We just care about winning the next one. But they, like you said, they do have a daunting task, and I really don't think our offense is gonna get there to where we need it to be. So it's gonna come down to our defense. Our defense really, I mean, they are doing already a lot for us, but we need to get turnovers. In these past 3 games, we haven't forced a turnover. It's been 12 straight quarters now since we forced a turnover, and that pretty much decides the game. Whoever wins the turnover battle. We do have a very tough task. I think via PFF, Pro Football Focus, QB grades through week 8, we are playing 5 quarterbacks that are graded higher than Braden Shager. The top one would be New Mexico's Dampier with 89.1. Nevada's Lewis is at kind of right behind him. We also got to go against Williams from UNLV. We got Petros from. So there's a lot of good quarterbacks left on our schedule, and again, our offense is they're gonna put up at least one touchdown. They're gonna get on the touchdown board, but our defense, and they have been superhuman at home. So it's just, they gotta. It's gonna be tough, but is it doable? Yes, but we gotta start with just one first, and don't look at the stretch. Just focus on one. Get some momentum. I think we go on the road after this week. But even then, we just got to get this win on homecoming, and then we can move forward. Because, last year we won, 3 or 4 in November. So November is kind of a better month for us. So hopefully we get a win this weekend, and then we can kind of talk about the future.
Yeah, we definitely have to start at 1. And if there's any hope for Hawaii to come out with a win, it is always at home. So hopefully Hawaii being able to win on homecoming against Nevada, a team that has been kind of up and down. Like you remember me in the beginning of the season, I was like, oh, this Nevada team, they're going to be one to reckon with down the stretch, then had a few losses that didn't seem like they should have lost. And then now they're kind of ramping up again. So Hawaii will host Nevada, and just one at a time, because at least if you get a win against Nevada here, that now the confidence starts coming back again, right? You need to get a win against an FBS opponent, so at least we can start to talk about that, because I know that's always been the knock with Hawaii through this season, is like your 2 wins are just against FCS opponents, so need to get a win against an FBS opponent and build that confidence back for the team. And then you go on the road at Fresno State, a Fresno State team that has not answered to what their preseason predictions would have been as well. So, hey, now you get a chance to play a Fresno State team that isn't as good as they have been, but it is on the road. But at least if you were able to win against Nevada, like I said, you get that confidence back. Like, guys, we can do this. Similar to when I talked to Soccer's JC Jika, and they were getting scored on all those games to open up the season. And once they got their first shutout, it's like, all right, we can do this. We can shut out teams. We can prevent goals. So that's task number 1 now. Is everyone going to be healthy like Pafele and DeKale? We'll find out this week. Peter Manuma, because that will be huge. Like, if those guys are out again, you're already, again, like starting from behind on what you normally start with. But one game at a time. If you take a look at the Mountain West standings, you got UNLV and Boise or UNLV ahead of Boise, only because they have one more game overall. But UNLV, Boise, Colorado State, San Diego State, all undefeated in the Mountain West. Then you have San Jose State, Fresno State, New Mexico, Wyoming, Nevada, Hawaii, and followed by Utah.
Is the only way that you can go, one foot in front of the other, and all the cliches that you can toss out there. You can't go on a winning streak or winning one game at a time. I feel like I'm talking about the Jets again. Oh my God. Anyway, no, big opportunity this weekend at home for homecoming against Nevada. Hopefully fans come, show out, show their support, enjoy an awesome night that is homecoming that the marketing staff will put on. And who knows, maybe that energy is infectious, helps lead to a win and maybe a win streak.
Hey, if the one game on the road that Hawaii has under Timmy Chang was at Nevada. So we're able to beat them on the road. Hopefully we can beat them at home, but we'll definitely continue it as we go along. But we got to go. For Paul Brecht, Michael Liscaro, I'm Ku'ule Agbayani. Bye!
1, 2, 3.